Hi, everyone. You're tuning in to Radical Good with your host, Radha Friedman. In this video podcast, we're going to explore the question, what will it take to get more resources into the hands of women and girls, especially women and girls of color, women and girls who are queer, women and girls with disabilities, or all of the above? How can we be more intersectional and inclusive? I've spent 2 decades working on gender equality issues all over the world. And the universal truth that I've seen is that when you invest in women and girls, it creates a ripple effect of benefits that spread through her family, through her community, and ultimately through the world. We'll talk with powerhouse women and some male-bodied allies to hear inspiring stories and learn some practical ways that we can use the resources we have at our disposal to advance progress on equality by spending like it matters, giving like it matters, and investing like it matters, so we can really narrow the gender wealth gap. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Radha, it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk with you. And when I was thinking about putting this podcast together around all the different ways that we could be investing in women and girls, you were one of the first people that I thought of that I really was excited to talk with, because you've had so much incredible experience with this over the years. So just to give you a quick introduction, because it would take a very long time if I spent this podcast telling everybody about all of the amazing things that you've done. I will just say that you are an incredible award-winning digital social impact entrepreneur. You're a huge advocate for women in technology and the power of technology to connect and amplify them. You're, of course, the founder and CEO of World Pulse, which is an incredible network for thousands of women across 190 countries, which is just incredible to say out loud. And through this platform, there are so many amazing things that women are able to accomplish, launching businesses and building social movements and ending harmful practices. It's really amazing. And I noted that last year you received the Media Social Impact Award from the United Nations, which is also not too shabby. So thank you so much for joining to talk with me and to any of our listeners about the work that you do.
Well, you know me, we can't talk about investing in women and girls globally enough. Keep raising the volume on it.
I do. I love it. So I thought that we would just get started by learning a little bit more about your journey to get here. And with so many of the remarkable women I've met, I find that there's always some sort of a story in the journey, some experience that led them to where they are now. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I grew up very shy in the rural Midwest, in the countryside, and I was homeschooled. I had a little secret place that I would go to behind the barn in the field, and I'd lay down with my books and I would dream about the world. And I had this yearning. It was almost like my voice was trapped in my throat, because I was really paralyzingly shy. And there was something that just wanted to come out. And I ended up traveling and becoming an international journalist at 19 years old, because I felt like I just had to see the world through the eyes of women, and I wanted to be a witness. I wasn't confident in public. I would be absolutely, could barely even correct people who mispronounced my name, which was quite a lot, Radha, if you can imagine. But when I went into the Amazon in Ecuador, the women there that I was working with, indigenous women, were struggling with oil contamination on their traditional lands. And they kept asking me to be their messenger and to tell the world. So that is where I really realized that I could be a journalist, and stepped into that fully. But the vision for World Pulse, that moment when I realized that it needed to exist, happened for me when I was on the Burma-Thai border. I was interviewing women, refugees who were fleeing ethnic cleansing all day long, and they also were asking me to be their messenger. And I was just feeling really heavy with that, with their stories. And I was on a bamboo mat trying to sleep, just tossing and turning. It was on a balcony under these stars. It was hot and sticky. And I just was feeling like I could tell those stories, but who was going to listen? Who was going to really care? And I could see this hope, this like flame of hope of being heard and expressing their incredible visions for the future to me and entrusting me with that. And I just was feeling hopeless. And suddenly the stars, sometimes you get struck with a bolt of lightning. To me, it was like the stars pulsed and they talked to me. And I saw them connecting in this building pulse. And I knew that I was being shown the solution in that moment. And it was, each pulse of light was a woman's voice unlocking and really being seen and heard and unlocking a chain reaction of other lights. And to me, it was connected voice. It was given to me, this vision, and the rest of my life as a social entrepreneur has been in pursuit of learning how to bring that vision to life through the right design of digital technology that can truly connect women on the ground around the world and bring them a greater global voice and that greater collective power.
I love that. When I asked that question, I had no idea that that's where you're going to take it. And I love it. There's something really so incredibly powerful about the work that World Pulse does. And I wonder if you could share a little more, just in case people who don't know about it yet. I don't know why you wouldn't, but now you're going to. Can you share a little bit about what it is and how people can connect to it?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you can imagine, if you imagined a Facebook that was actually designed and powered by tens of thousands of Malalas around the world, that would be as close of a description as I could get to World Pulse. But we are a global social network platform that is connecting women change makers on ground across 190 countries. Our network is over 72,000 mostly community-based women leaders who are really up to big things. They're working on ending child marriage. They are ending violence. They're the whole spectrum of issues. And on World Pulse, they have a platform where they are able to speak for themselves in their own words, to connect. They're exchanging stories and resources and networking in really a global solidarity sisterhood network. But then they're actually going on as a result of feeling more heard, being more connected, and accessing more resources through the network to create massive impact on ground. And we have our network is reported to us that they're impacting over 12.6 million people in their communities. They're expanded and new businesses and initiatives and running for office, standing up for land rights, this whole huge array of different kinds of initiatives that they're running. So that's World Pulse essentially, and anyone can join. You can just click on, and it's free to join, but it's very heavily protected. We have a strong moderation. There's no cyber harassment, no cyber attacking. It's a war zone for women online. We welcome anyone to come as a safe space to network, make new sisters, make new friends, boost your initiatives.
Yes, I love it. So I remember when World Pulse started, in addition to the digital platform, it was also a print periodical. And I went into my archives to find this, which I think is maybe your second issue that you had. And you interviewed me for this article on women's land rights, which is incredible. This is actually a picture that my partner took. This was my very first site visit when I was working with Landesa right before we created the Center for Women's Land Rights. So I'm curious about how you've seen it change and grow since you took it from print to digital.
Well, it's funny you bring that. I don't want to brag, but literally I go back in those magazines, and the people that we interviewed and have covered are today like really leading lights in the world or built and initiatives. And so the very evergreen, the content that's there, and a lot of people still constantly tell me they haven't thrown them away. They keep them.
No, they're beautiful. Why would you throw them away? It's incredible.
So, but the magazine started because really the what was possible with the internet wasn't fully known at the time that I started the vision of. So the vision that I had of this global connected network, I thought, well, how am I going to do this? I guess I better start a print magazine, and so I learned everything about print magazine and literally got the magazine up on over 200 newsstands across North America, and figured everything out about independent publishing with mostly pro bono team. And we started winning awards from it. But I realized that pretty quickly, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Do you realize what's coming?" This was just about when Facebook was getting started. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I realized what was then called Web 2.0, I knew there was no going back. I said, that's it. And we have to take World Pulse online for greater impact. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people were telling me, oh, I was getting emails from women around the world. We'd love to be covered. We want to be featured, but we didn't have page space. We couldn't do postage to ship it around the world. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, people in the West Coast of the United States who were talking to me were saying, we want to do more than just read this story. We want to connect. We had no idea what was happening in Iraq or what was happening in the Colombian jungles. We want to do more, so help us connect. And it was just natural to take it online to enable that greater connection for impact.
I love it. So you've said such wonderful things about the power of something like this kind of a network to connect across the world who are sharing so many of the same experiences but are separated by physical distance. I was wondering if you could share with us the thing that really drives you in doing this work. I mean, what do you love most about it?
Well, deep in every single cell of my body is the knowing that investing in women is one of the greatest accelerators for global change. It's the biggest lever that we have for solving virtually every global issue. And on the other hand, technology is also an incredible accelerator. It can bring things we never before dreamed possible. And if you put them together, I believe you've got the biggest rocket boost in our hands to speed the pace to gender equality and to change the world. I think of it as like it's the ultimate hack for global sustainability. So I know that in my bones, and even no matter what, I talked to Jane Goodall, for example, who's been a mentor for me, and I'm always asking her, what's the number one thing we can do? And she always says, connect the women, connect the women. And I believe at this moment where there's a virus that's driving massive transformation for the planet, if we do connect the women, and we are connecting the women, that's one of the greatest immune systems for the planet that we have today. It's fascinating because this virus is targeting the older patriarchal mindset.
Yeah.
So that's on the head side and in my cells, I know that. But on the spiritual side, it's about the beauty of the human spirit. And what I love most about World Pulse is actually my own experience of like going on there on a daily basis and stepping inside something that feels like a cathedral to me, of a culture of women connecting across all borders and languages and cultures and supporting each other. It's a supportive space. And to sit back and listen and learn from women from as diverse as Alaska to Bangladesh to the South Bronx, and really listen to those experiences and feel crying. I'm crying a lot, crying with a sense of deep connection, with a feeling of aliveness and feeling connected to something bigger. So I think on the spiritual level, it's almost like a new global spirituality that I've never seen anywhere else. And I'm so honored and proud to be able to benefit from that myself. But it's really been created by our global network.
It's It's really incredible, this idea of building a vessel and then watching to see the magic that gets filled inside when you invite people to participate in. People who really honor the space and understand how important and significant and rare it is to have a space like that. A space where there's no harassment, a space where there's true connection. I really think that that's going to be a remarkable resource for anybody who's listening who doesn't already know about it or maybe hasn't participated in a while. I was wondering if you could share some kind of a story or example of what you've seen come out of this, because at least for me, I find myself so steeped in data about gender equality and what it's going to take to move more resources and shift more power into the hands of women that I sometimes get lost in the data. And I have to remind myself, pull it back, rein it in, and talk about the impact that you've seen on one person or one community. So I wondered if you have a great story that can kind of illustrate that, about the power of connecting women and investing in women in this kind of way.
Yes, I do. And I think of the investing in women a bit of a broader lens of voice, connection, and resources. And it's the thing that we hear from our network over and over again of, what is fortifying them? What do women around the world want? And so one of the examples that I can think of, there's so many, it's hard to choose, but there's a woman who is in Cameroon who is a survivor of the practice of breast ironing, which, for those of you who aren't aware of the practice of breast ironing, it is pretty secret and practice that happens and affects 3 to 4 million women and girls in Cameroon, who are typically mothers and grandmothers, heat up hot stones or coconut shells, and they pulverize the breast tissue of their daughters in an attempt to protect them from the high rates of sexual violence in their communities. And it's just a very silenced practice. Even women don't really talk about it amongst each other, and it's kind of like passing down the cookie recipe from your grandmother. It's just done. And I learned about it. I didn't even know about it because I have a degree in gender studies and have been for decades. And so one of our members started writing about it on our platform, and she tells the story of what happened to her through this process, where she was just depressed and lost because she was seeing these breast ironing all around her. Her sister, her friends were becoming depressed and going on to become pregnant. And she also seeing widow stoning and all these horrific things for women in her community. And she was about to give up, but she was on her mobile phone and she found World Pulse, and she saw the line of, "No one speaks for me, I speak for myself." And she thought, no one else will listen to me here. No one cares in my community. I'm going to see if I can speak to the world. So in that process, she started telling this story. And from World Pulse, it actually got picked up on CNN and went to #1 on their homepage. Wow. And she got a lot of attention from it. So today, if you look at international headlines about breast ironing, her name is going to come up because she really broke world news on this. But it was this power of being seen and being visible that then drew resources to her. She got awards. She got a $5,000 grant, and through the Women Have Wings Award. She took that $5,000. Here was a woman who was depressed, doing nothing, not even sure if she could go on, and she launched an Ending Breast Ironing campaign, which has now spread to over 60,000 women and girls in Cameroon who have vowed to end the practice. She's been conducting it through storytelling in churches and hair salons and bringing in pop celebrities and men and having radio programs, and she's teaming up with the government on this. And she's grown armies of leaders, women leaders in all different regions and across the country, which is now a built-in mobilizing network for the peace movement, since the conflict is spiraling out of control now in Cameroon. And and they're now organizing across the divide, across the conflict lines as women for peace, and trying to get the governments and the various factions to stop the fighting. And they're really speaking out loudly online. And so that's, I think, to me, one of a great example of just one voice, how just one voice can the silence and launch movements. We see this again and again in country after country.
Thank you so much for sharing that, share their stories, because inevitably everybody has a story about how investing in one woman, giving her the resources, giving her the tools, giving her the support that she needed, was the thing that ended up spreading ripple benefits to everyone in her family, in her community, in the nation, and in the world. And it just never fails. People have these incredible stories of this time and again. And I think it really speaks to the importance of investing in women and girls, right? We know it to be true, and yet we just need to muster the will to do it. So I'm thinking that in light of the current situation that we find ourselves in, that the world is in an unusual place before, not in global history, but certainly in our lifetimes. We have additional challenges ahead of us, and I've been thinking a lot anyway about the burden that this is placing disproportionately on women and girls, because women are caretakers, women are predominantly the nurses, as well as the doctors, but the nurse aides, the aged caregivers, so much of the childcare burden falls on them. So with schools closed, that's an additional burden. They are also the cleaners. And I'm thinking a lot about how this opportunity that we're in right now can also be directed for good. And whether you have thoughts about how we can take this unique moment that we're in and channel our best good for the rest of the world through it.
I do have thoughts about that. Of course, it is a very precarious time. We're at a moment where we're still 100 years to gender equity in the best scenarios, best modeling right now. And this has potential to basically be a big setback, especially since most of the world is turning online as a means of connection and also vital health information and organizing and sustaining each other through this. And still half of the world's women are offline. And not to mention, as the pandemic reaches into other regions of the world that has less infrastructure capacity to manage, and people have less ability to be as socially distanced, it could be absolutely devastating. So there's a real cause for concern. And then, of course, not even to mention the economic impacts, as you shared. However, on the side of this opportunity that can come through, the breakthrough that can come through the breakdown, I mentioned before, I see this as a moment where the immune system for the planet can be activated, and we can actually use the power of women who are online to be advocates and change agents for those who are offline. And we can take this time while we are holed up in our locations to actually deepen our relationship building and our organizing, and to deepen those relationships through online. So one of the things we've done is we've launched a big She Transforms Tech campaign, which is really rallying women's voice. We have over 100 plus partners, women's rights partners and digital rights partners who are rallying around this. But we want a new global tech agenda that works for women, so that there is greater access and availability, because the online world is a lifeline for not only health information, but for economic advancement. 90% of the jobs in the next 10 years are going to have digital skills. And also the way in which online worlds can be very soul-sucking sometimes. You know how you feel exhausted after you've been on a Zoom calls for half a day?
I do.
Very real right now. But we can design online connections. Women can design online connections that really nourish us and lift us up. And that's just hasn't been the mindset in the build of our technology today. So we're really rallying voices around the world. We're going to deliver it into the United Nations agenda setting for Sustainable Development Goal number 5 in the Beijing Action Plan, and a number of different forums. And I think this is a moment where we can really drive bigger investment and massive investment in digital infrastructure for women's online movement building.
Yes.
And I'm a real advocate for that. We have to take it seriously, because if we don't take it, I mean, obviously look at where we are today. If we would have taken it seriously over the last 10 years, this could be a huge leapfrog for women's movements, and even bigger. We could take advantage of it even bigger. So I think that investment in infrastructure and connectivity for women means that there's a lot of social capital that also gets unlocked. Right now, we're leaking a lot of impact with investing in this organization, this initiative, this geographic hospital, orphanage, or this one group that's in one issue or one silo. And we actually also need to invest in the ecosystem infrastructure that can connect all the pieces, so that there can be a lot more solutions, collaboration building, leapfrog us to the next level.
Yes, I love it. I love all of that positive thinking. And I'm also thinking about how there are going to be all different people along the spectrum who are thinking right now about what they can do, ways that they can help, how to be engaged. But I'm adding this gender lens to everything I do. It's natural. I can't help it. Because I want to make sure that the people who are disproportionately affected receive the resources they need, so that we can get closer to equity. So considering that I don't yet know exactly who's going to be listening to this, it's probably going to be a mix of nonprofit leaders, women philanthropists, potentially institutional donors, all of the above. What do you think is one thing that people can do to really invest in women and girls in some way from their own sphere? It's a huge question.
Well, the bottom line of that is to invest, and whether it is a $5 or it's a 5 million, we all need to be moving money right now. We need to be moving money, but also time and talent. But let's not forget the money and resourcing piece too. So I think seeing the privilege and the joy in giving, and matching it so deeply with what keeps you up at night, what you care most about, what's the future vision that you have in the world, and finding those things to invest in as a sacred act that is building the future that you want. Purchasing power, of course, as well as for-profit investing or philanthropic investing. I do think when we do invest, I recommend that we look at 3 different areas of investing. I look at, is where you're investing, are there ability for the women to have voice, to have collective mobilization, and to have holistic solutions? So when I say that, if you're going to invest in an initiative or a movement, are the women able to speak for themselves? Are you able to hear their voices? Is there a way for them to tell their own stories, to author their own impact? Or is it a pretty top-down organization? I think that's transformative, where the ultimate participants of where your dollars are going is their voice. The second one is that collective mobilization. Is there ability, so it's not just isolated, like let's have one woman start her chicken farm, but where there is built into the initiative a way of gathering. Because if there's anything I've seen over the last decade, is that women find their voice and their power in the collective. And then the last one is holistic solutions. I just would encourage people to, although it seems easy and makes things simpler to say, I'm just going to focus on one issue, on water and women. I'm just going to focus on sexual and reproductive health and women. And I would encourage everyone to take a closer look and resist the temptation of just doing that, because what I've learned is that women leaders who are really doing up to big change are so holistic, and they're blending and they're addressing multiple issues at once, and they have very innovative, multifaceted solutions. So just be cautious when you invest that you're not putting someone into a box and saying, well, it has to line up and every grant dollar has to be showing it's building a well. Just trust the women and their very multifaceted solutions that they're building.
I love that framework, and I really especially appreciate the intersectional analysis that goes into it, because all of the issues are connected, and we don't have just one identity, and there's such a strong need for trust-based philanthropy right now, especially in this moment in the world. That is the best way to move resources. So thank you. I appreciate that. My final question for you, it's actually a two-part question. It's about your inspiration and some of the other incredible women that are around you in your sphere. It's a question that starts with who inspires you? And then the second part of the question is, who else is an amazing, badass woman out there in the world that you think should be interviewed on this podcast?
Oh my God, Radha, that's so, there's so many. Okay. I think I have this. Well, I mean, you know my answers. The women leaders on World Pulse freaking inspire me every single day. But in this moment, there is someone who rises up to me as just profound inspiration, and her name is Nema Namadamu from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you know Nema?
I don't.
So Nema is a member of our community, but she is a global leader and a leader in Congo. But she was born with polio. Her mother had to carry her on her back to school. And she at times dragged herself to school, literally for miles and miles. And Nema is a voice for women with disabilities, but for women across all of DRC, which is known as one of the most violent regions in the world for women, and has about 5% internet access. It's also very hard for them to reach out and be heard and speak to the world. But Nema started speaking out about World Pulse and with the vision to connect women across DRC for a better future. And then she started building women-only cyber cafes and started speaking. She's now friends with like Angelina Jolie because she's like traveling around the world. She kind of launched off from World Pulse, but she's basically building collectives of women through DRC, linking them through the internet, building in environmental and climate change resilience, planting trees, building development plans with coalitions of women that include things like cattle farming and major telecom industries. And she is someone who, she hates it when journalists call her and say, tell us about the rapes that are happening in the Congo.
Yeah.
Like, we are not victims, we are liberators. And Africa, we are rich and we are proud. And she is such a leader in it's not about followers, but about building other leaders. And she constantly motivates me. She tells me, Jensine, it's the great miracle solution. This is the phrase she uses all the time. It's the miracle solution. You connect, you give women voice. It's the miracle solution. And she says that to me. It gives me it's like an antidote drip for me that keeps me going in tough times. Her voice is always there, and she always has time. But she's traveling around the world in a wheelchair, which is her chariot, that she calls it. And she's an incredible leader, resilient leader with a big, big vision that I can barely wrap my mind around sometimes.
Wow. I love it. I love the miracle solution. That is great. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. And then did you have a second person that you were thinking of for the podcast, or is this a 2-in-1, a twofer?
Oh my gosh. Well, she definitely is a twofer, but I would suggest, I'm really loving Hazel Henderson right now, who's a visionary feminist economist and futurist. And she just wrote an incredible piece called Lessons from a Pandemic, Looking Back from 2050. And she just has an incredible vision for how we reorder and transform our global economy and what that future looks like. She really spells it out. And it's pretty great to bring that vision alive.
That sounds amazing. See, I love having conversations with people like this because I learn about all of these other amazing women that I need to meet and that we all need to connect with. And so that's incredible. I can't wait to look her up and learn more about her. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a really wonderful and nourishing conversation for me. I love this platform that you've created. I love all of the connections it's created throughout the world. It's like the connective tissue between the women and the planet. And I'm so, so, so glad to know you and have you in my network and to know that you're out there in the world creating even more connections between women.
Well, right back at you, sister. Thank you for creating this platform and for being that beam of light at a time where everyone needs to hear this message and really believe in their power to invest and make a better world. It's very, very here right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radha. Bye.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If today's conversation piqued your curiosity, please comment below, review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. And let me know your suggestions for future guests you'd like to hear from. Also, follow me on social media. The links will be in the show notes. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter on my website at www.radhafriedman.org. If you want to be inspired, think big, and take action to advance gender equality, then subscribe to this podcast to hear more inspiring stories and tips on how we can close the gender wealth gap. Thanks for listening.